A little bit about my background, Wildcat alum, which is why I'm here today. And yeah, I got my degree in Spanish translation and interpretation, which I'm nowhere doing what what I got my degree in today, but that's definitely allowed and opened the doors to where I am today. I do have a master's in business and administration. And yeah, that's kind of the sum of my job. We're a commercial construction company here in Phoenix, women-owned enterprise. Love everything that I do. So that's a little intro about who I am.
Next, Brent Braden. Boy, I went to school forever ago. Accounting and finance double major. Loved my time there. Did a few years at IBM. Went to grad school, and then I stumbled my way into a job at Nike 16 and change years ago. So I'm the college sports marketing director, and I kind of seek, sign, and service college partners around the country. It's a really fun job. I clearly am a homer for my alma mater, but it's great to be able to give back in a number of ways, including through work. So happy to be here today.
And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Demetrius Alexio, and I'm President and CEO of the Hospital Association of San Diego and Imperial Counties. I've been in my current role for the past 7 years, even though at times, like now when healthcare is really booming, it feels like a lot longer. The Hospital Association is an advocacy organization. We represent hospitals and health systems. And the best way I'd describe what we do is we help hospitals who help patients and save lives. So it is an interesting experience. As it says, I do have my bachelor's from the University of Arizona in Brent. If you were an eternity ago, I'm even longer. So I don't know what that would be. I do have my master's from Cal State Northridge in health administration. And, just in terms of my career journey, it's been anything but a straight line. Intention was to be a hospital CEO, worked for Providence Health and Services, and was a chief operating officer for a pediatric facility, but ultimately followed where the opportunities led me. And that's how I ended up in my current role.
Great. Hi, so I am Wendy Sanuick, and I am the Vice President of Food Service and On-Premise for Swire Coca-Cola. So Swire is a $2 billion revenue company based out of Draper, Utah. And they cover all of our Coca-Cola products for 13 states. And my particular role is field sales, so VP of field sales, which I absolutely love. So I get to handle any place that you experience our brands, our team gets to handle it. So restaurants, if you're at University of Arizona game, if you are at a NBA game, so any place that's just fun and interactive and we get to create some brand love, that's what my team covers. 25 years with Coca-Cola. When I graduated from U of A, I went out and worked for Macy's and did their training program out of San Francisco. So excited to be here. I'm also part of the Wildcat Mentor Society, which like you said, I think Brent, and love giving back and love working with young students. And I have 2 U of A grads that just graduated in May are entering this fun world. So I definitely have a heart for helping people find their passion.
First step is just sort of figuring out a field, a direction. Take healthcare, for example. I meet with students regularly and they say they want to work in a hospital. Well, a hospital, for example, is a large organization, and you identified you can be in finance, you can do operations, et cetera. So that's where really, I think Wendy's question is a great one in terms of what is your passion, because frankly, you can get a job, anybody can get a job, but what you want to find is something that you love to do that also pays you, which is sort of the win-win. So that's sort of, in my mind, what I would continue to drill down on is the type of organization, because frankly, finance, and I know a lot of finance people, it's nothing against finance people, but if you like to talk and communicate and listen and hear, finance probably isn't the direction that'll give you those sorts of things that you described. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I would also just like to add too is understanding what the workforce kind of looks like. I believe you mentioned that you were in Tucson, and utilizing LinkedIn. LinkedIn for me, being in marketing and business development, is my absolutely favorite tool ever that has ever existed. And it's so great because, obviously now with COVID and everything, they really did a great job of marketing, open to work, now hiring, et cetera, and kind of just playing with LinkedIn and looking at, who is hiring in the Tucson area within something that you do have a passion in, and start researching those companies. And I think the biggest thing is ensuring that those organizations' vision and mission truly align with your passions. And I think that's sometimes something that people don't really deep dive and try to understand and learn. And then they just take the first thing that comes to them. And then they join the team and they're like, well, I don't like it, or I'm not having a great time. Well, what kind of research did you do? Was this a company that's very heavy in philanthropic work, or like Demetrius was saying, maybe it's just a finance company, et cetera. Really just understanding what that company stands for you to understand whether this is an organization that I want to be a part of or not even waste my time. So you also kind of putting restrictions to, these are the companies that I'm looking for, and that maybe even help you hone in on the right company for you.
I think Brent has a great experience about stepping stones. Is it right? Brent, didn't you tell me you took a temp job?
I did. I was just about to jump in with that. So like Nike's a tough place to crack into. And so and you'll have to forgive me. It's the experience that I can speak to most directly, but yeah, I started as a temp. I got a phone call, I'd done an online application, and months go by, no call. And then one day I get a call and they just said, hey, you had applied for this role. Are you interested? And and I was in a foul mood that day, and it was a terrible. So if I could hit rewind, I would rewind and I would do it all over again. And I'd probably be more cordial to the woman who called. But ultimately, after about 5 minutes of conversation, she actually said, hey, I know I called you about this job, but you might be a better fit for this job. And it turns out like it wasn't a full-time, Nike employment opportunity. It was a contractor working at Nike, but it was a better fit for me personally, and it got me the foot in the door I needed. And then from there, it's a silly conversation, but I had with my manager, I said, hey, if there's an opportunity to have a conversation with a full-time employee about potentially full-time employment, I'd like to do that. So I'll work on the project, I'll clock out, I'll go have that cup of coffee, I'll come back, I'll clock in. And, I played it very much by the book. And I happened to have a cup of coffee one day with a guy. We argued for 55 minutes he was a Red Sox fan and I was a Cubs fan. And it's goofy, but literally 55 minutes of arguing about baseball. And at the end, he says, I have a job you might be interested in. And so I know that was a long story, forgive me, but I lean heavily on there's more than one way to crack into a company. So I love that you're talking about internships, because that when I first heard you speak, that was kind of my first thought. I'm like, junior year, that's that internship opportunity. And even if you don't end up at that company, it's the experience that's really important. So
Michael, you said something there at the end that I also wanted to mention. You mentioned that, you're not sure if it's a thing you want to do for 20 years. Yeah. And again, something I'm hearing from all of these experiences and alumni interviews is that very few folks are in places for 20 years. And if they are with the same company, there's been progression. There's been, movement. So I wouldn't put concern in that space, right? Focus on the things that interest you, that you enjoy, that you like, and then stay active. That's another common message I've heard from our Wildcats, is that they always chose to do something and be involved in something, right? Whether it's an internship or it's a study abroad or it's, something, a club, an organization. There's always some sort of common thread of activity that helps to open up the doors. You can't remain passive. And then you're doing that. I'm not saying that you're not, but continue to do that.
And I would just like to add to that too, something that I moved to Phoenix 3 years ago. I was actually in operations management right out of college through the U of A. And pretty much for the 8-9 years that I was in Tucson shortly after I had graduated. And, I got to a point in my career where I was working for a very large firm in Tucson, getting paid well, everything that anyone could ever ask for. But I realized I'm not satisfied in operations management anymore. I don't fulfillment. This is a great company. Oh my goodness, my salary is great, but waking up every morning was dreadful, and knowing that I had to go into the office and I would just get this anxiety of why am I feeling this, right? So I I took the leap of faith and I moved to Phoenix, not knowing anybody. I was like, I'm gonna get the first job I can get, and almost like you mentioned, stepping stone to get me into that next place that I was truly looking for. That was like my calling, and that was business development and marketing. I've always had a passion for interacting with individuals and being very involved with my community. I sit on various different boards and associations, the American Cancer Society, Valley Wise Health Foundation, a couple of different organizations. And through that, it really helped open the doors to other individuals that were CEOs at so-and-so firm, or director here, director there. And because we were all able to kind of meet and have a love and passion for like the American Cancer Society. And we were very, we were all in on this one message, and through there arose opportunities of like, where are you going? What do you want to do? So getting involved with your community is great. And I think too, is taking that leap of faith. I took the largest pay cut of my life moving down to Phoenix, but I do not regret it. It's been an amazing place. I truly love the career and the new role that I'm in today, which I've now been in marketing and business development for 3 years. But that was one hell of a leap of faith. My family was not supportive. They were like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? You have a mortgage, you have a great job, great benefits. And I was like, I got to do it. I'm just not happy anymore. And I can't wake up feeling like this day after day after day. So best decision I ever did was to take that leap of faith, move to Phoenix. But it was through those associations that I was really able to help build that network and get me connected to the position I am in now, and I love.
And I would add, Jennifer, I think that's a great example. I think you'll hear more of that if we start talking about our own careers. I mean, I worked for Providence Health and Services, large healthcare organization. Brent, you would be familiar, up in Pacific Northwest. They have 5 hospitals in Southern California, had a full-time salaried position. And I left that position for an internship, a fellowship actually, with the Hospital Association of Southern California, because Brent, you resonated because it was a similar conversation of, I started to learn more about policy work, which is different than operations. And I said to somebody, hey, if there's ever an opportunity, and next thing you know, I got a call one day and left a full-time salaried position for a 1-year fellowship. But it really is, it's the networking, it's the relationships you build ultimately that are going to be the difference maker. I can tell you, in my career, every job I've been in has either come through a relationship or a network, not so much by going on to some hiring website or some organization. Not that you don't get hired that way, but I tell people today, even people that I hire, I'd rather hire somebody who I know or know through someone that I trust than take a stack of resumes and draw one out and hope that I made a good choice.
Well, don't get discouraged. I know that probably those are just words, but really it is. And I think all of us have said, like, every job we've had, or I know that I've had, was because I was in something and it led to something else. So it's just getting in that door. And like Jennifer was saying, like, just reaching out. I had a gentleman from Atlanta that had worked for Coke in the past and reached out, and he just keep reaching out on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, sure. And he ended up moving here and getting a job. And so it's a fight and it's a challenge, but you're obviously, you're well-spoken, you want to work, that's half the battle these days, honestly. And maybe I know with one of my boys right now, I'm really working with, like, what are those top 5 things, back to your passion point, like, what are those top 5 things that are most important to you? And is it the company, or is it, okay, I need to be in Tucson, or I need to provide for my family, and then I'll put in the chat, there's this Marcus Buckingham, you might have heard of it. It's called Standout 2.0. But it just talks about everyone has like unique strengths, and it gives your top 2, and those are your competitive edge. And when it's a really easy test, it's free right now. And it kind of helps then with verbalizing, not only here's what I want to go do, but here's what I'm good at. Here's what I can contribute to your company or to your team. It's just kind of interesting. So I'll put that out there in case you want to try it, but definitely network like you're doing right now. I'm sure you connect with all of us on LinkedIn. Not that we necessarily have the perfect role, but don't get discouraged. It's a battle, but once you find it, it always leads to something else.
In addition to the mentor side, in regard to looking for like a coach or mentor, our office also has career coaches and peer educators to work with individuals, students to look at, you know, if you need some help reviewing some resume or doing some interview preparation. It sounds like you're finding opportunity, and I'm a little bit curious, and this is what you could talk to a coach about, a career coach or a peer advisor, like what's happening next? Is there a challenge in an interview? Are you getting to the interview? Like a little more information with one of our coaches could help prep you in some of these other ways as well, if there's some other challenges. But then also having a mentor as a coach and a guide would be also hugely effective in this case. You already mentioned you're coming to career fairs. We've got fall career days coming up at the end of September. That's 4 days of career fair. Business has their fair coming up. So there's definitely ample opportunity to make connections. But part of the story that I was hearing was that you are finding opportunity, but then somewhere along the line, we kind of identify where the drop off is and how can we hone in on what's needed there. That's what one of our coaches or a mentor could help you with. I put another resource in the chat as well. University provides a system called Big Interview, which is an online video interviewing software. And it's, for our purposes, it's actually to help students practice and do practice interviewing online. So if that's something of a concern that you feel like might be, you know, the in-person versus the video, definitely check out the Big Interview. And again, connecting with any of our coaches or peer advisors, they can also provide support in by way of mock interviews, practice interviews in person. So there's definitely other ways to get a bump in any of these areas if you can identify where there might be a little bit of challenge.
I think the networking is key, right? Because when you network with someone, I don't remember the last time I filled out an application, to be truthfully honest. A position or the job that I'm in. I mean, I've been in Phoenix 3 years, and in the 3 years, it took 2 stepping stones to get to where I am today. And both positions were all through just networking and meeting the right people. And again, really no application process, no send me your resume. I think it was one of those things, as Justin mentioned, or I think it was Demetrius that mentioned, you know, they would rather hire someone that they know or someone that, you know, was introduced to them. And that's the situation. I see that happening more and more nowadays because who wants to look through 100 resumes? That's, I think that's really going to be your key to kind of help you get into where you're looking, at least as you're waiting to kind of finish school here in the next year and a half. So that would be my biggest recommendation. Get involved with as many clubs at the U of A. I know we're in COVID times, but if there's any community work that you really have a passion for, whether that's kids, you know, homeless, you know, whatever that may be, healthcare, you know, veterans, start kind of researching some of those community nonprofits that exist in Tucson for you to kind of ask, hey, how can I get involved? How can I volunteer? How can I sit on the board? And the people that sit on those boards or that sit in those committees are very important people to the community that just share the same passion as you do, but are doing that on their free time as volunteers. And a lot of times I find most do not have a lot of say in their own organizations as to who they can hire, who they can make an introduction to. So that would be, you know, where I would maybe start big time versus the application resumes, because I feel you, very exhausting.
Yeah, and another great point. I put another program actually in the chat. And Michael, because you did talk about wanting to try and get back into the networking piece, but some of it is hard. We have a program that's called 5 Steps to Build Your Network, identifying professionals that you'd like to identify and connect with. And it can be done completely at your own pace and online. It was a program we developed during COVID as a virtual way for students to continue to have connections with our alums. And so I would definitely check out that program, because that can be done on your own pace and at your own time. And then you identifying folks, utilizing our office as a support so that you can access some of the industry information that you're looking for. And you don't have to be dependent on events like this to connect with folks. You can be doing that outreach on your own on an individual basis.
Can you talk about a summary of that experience in terms of the networking that you pursued with Nike?
Oh, he might be
Like
frozen.
he's frozen.
Okay, maybe.
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
There he is. Now he's
Go
back.
figure.
Oh,
And that's how a bill becomes a law.
Thank you for explaining that, so I don't have to.
Right, exactly. No, I took a bit of a different approach, which was find 2 or 3 people that I could, had commonalities with, or could, I was just really interested in what they did, and I kind of had a networking approach, which was build a really strong relationship with 2 or 3 people rather than try to meet 100 people. I took a really strong approach to building solid relationships with. I was very fortunate one summer, just prior to joining Nike, I interned with the Portland Trailblazers, and I worked for their CFO. And in order to get time with him, like, he worked out at 4:30 in the morning. And so I would like ride an exercise bike next to him. It's all he had a bad knee. It's all he could do was ride a bike. So he said, that's a chance for us to get together. And I smiled and I'm like, that'd be awesome. And in the back of my head, I'm like, that would be terrible. But I did it, right? I just took the chance because it was the only time I was going to have him maybe isolated to ask questions about, I don't know, the collective bargaining agreement. Who knows what the topics were we even discussed. But by the way, still a great friend of mine to this day. He's now the CFO of the Ottawa Hockey Club, but and so he's not as close. But I'll have a bad day and I'll call him and I'll just say, hey, how do I deal with a situation where insert the situation?
Whether it's grabbing a stack of 100 cards or getting 2 meaningful ones, the key is it's the follow-up. It's Jennifer, you mentioned LinkedIn and the value. There's no value of hitting connect to somebody and never talking to them again, because I'd argue you don't have a connection. And so if you get a stack of 100 business cards, the cool thing is, and I screw that up because the back of my cards are blue. But if you have a white on the back of the card, one thing I've always learned is as you talk to somebody, just jot down a few notes because you may not remember everything. So that way, when you send a follow-up email, if it's 100 cards, you have 100 emails to send, but it's following up. Hey, we met, we talked about blah, blah, blah. You start to build that relationship, because otherwise you can have 100 business cards, they're worthless. You can have 100 connections on LinkedIn, they're worthless. It's the relationship building that provides the value.
And just to add to that too, I think it's so important that follow-up. One of the things that I do all the time is send thank you cards, handwritten thank you cards. After every meeting that I have, anybody that I'm connecting with, and I can't tell you, and even back when it was an interview, it was more so an email, but just that follow-up of saying, hey, thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Just wanted to say a couple more things why I love this company and why I think I'd be such a great fit. We'll see what happens, right? But I do that now more so from a partnership. Hey, coffee was great. I really enjoyed learning about your family. And just like Demetrius, a couple key points that I remember from that conversation, send it out in the mail. And I can't tell you how many thank yous, how many that really made me cry today, or that I really needed that put a smile on my face. Just that sentimental value to the importance of a relationship that I think nowadays you don't really have because of technology.
What about you, Wendy? What's your approach, or what has been your approach towards networking, and what would be your advice, in that topic in general for students or people, looking for, to connect?
It's interesting because one of my top 2 strengths is connector. That's one of the ones that come up. And so I love it. Like, I'm just passionate about it, but not from I love connecting people together, not necessarily for, I just want to be connected to everyone. I just love bringing resources together. But I have twins, like I was saying, that just graduated, and just looking at the 2 of them, one of them is on LinkedIn all the time, has a job that he likes, is always connecting. And he also doesn't take anything personally, because you have to do that too, right? You're going to reach out to people. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to people. Just know a lot of them won't respond, but don't ever take that personally. And then I have another one that instantly goes to, well, I didn't hear back from them. I'm like, you didn't hear back from the job that they said you have, and you start next week. But what, he just instantly goes to like, he's more of an introvert. And so I think just the biggest advice is or actually Brent, just at one of them, the one that's more my introvert, did the Nike internship, didn't get the job afterwards. And you would have thought like the world had ended right at first, but now he's like gotten another job. He's done, he did a job with the Old Navy, just a temp job while he was still in school. Like you can't get discouraged, and you have to just continue to reach out to people, but you have to do it in a very intentional way. So I know from LinkedIn that I get all the time, it's like, what's your intention? Communicate your intention. Tell people what you want, tell them where you want to go. Most people want to help other people. But you have to be able to really be able to communicate what you want.
And you are so right, Wendy. Ghosting is a real thing. It's legit. Ghosting. You send out stuff and you just get ghosted. Or as my kids tell me, you get left on red. That's also not a good thing. You get left on red. So these things are legit. That means you don't give up. You keep trying, outreach to somebody else.
And some of the folks that I still have a relationship with, and I, whether it's mentoring or whether it's, they find a good balance of communicating, but you have to find the rhythm of how often. I do think that's important, right? If you're texting 23 times a day and emailing me and calling me, like, okay, that's probably too much. You've got to find the right balance. So, and who am I to say what the right balance is? I know for me, it's like at most once a week's probably okay. Once every other week is probably a really good cadence. If we're, if it's literally just keeping in touch, there's some sort of right rhythm to find with somebody. There probably is such a thing as too much, and there definitely is too little. So if it's reaching out one time and then going dark for months and months and months, that's probably a bad idea. So it's, as I was working with folks that I wanted to build and develop relationships with, it was kind of key for me to figure out what the right cadence was or pace, or I'm not quite sure what the word is, but it was, I didn't want to, overwhelm, and at the same time, try not to underwhelm as well. So.
And I think, Brent, one thing I would add to that is it's the cadence, but it's also building the relationship before you make an ask. So if the first message I get from somebody is, I need a job, typically, I hate to say it, but I'm just not going to do much with that because, I don't know you to sort of open up all my contacts. But if we build a relationship and I understand what you're looking for, that's where you start to build the relationships. And I would agree, if you text somebody 23 times in a day, that's going to be a problem. But, honestly, and Wendy, I think you said it, we're all here because we genuinely like to help people. We like to give back. And along the way, we've had mentors who have helped us get to where we've been. So it is sort of that self-fulfilling piece that we want to then in turn pay that forward and help others. So that's really why we're all here. And Michael, please do reach out if I can help or others can help. I mean, we're invested in helping our alumni and seeing people succeed and get to where they want to get to.
And Michael, oh, sorry, Luis, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that regardless of like the number of students that we have live right now, of course, your contributions and messages will be repurposed to be able to help students through the recording. So I just want to thank you again for your participation. We're going to be working with the video file, posting it on YouTube, and we're going to be sharing it with tons of students. So thank you so much again for your participation today. So thanks again. Sorry, Wendy.
Oh, no, Michael, I was just going to say, and even don't think of yourself as, well, I'm 50. Think of yourself as, hey, I'm old school. I know how to mentor other people. I know how to connect. I know how to pick up the phone and not just text someone. Yeah. So you have, a lot of great things going with some of that experience.
And of course, Demetrius, you were talking about the importance of establishing relationships, with people first before the ask. So at least maybe taking turns, what would be something that you're comfortable with, as you get that initial approach from someone? Of course, as you mentioned, not asking for a job, but what would you feel comfortable with as that initial approach? Maybe a virtual coffee or something like that when someone is asking for advice. What would be an example of that for you?
It's honestly, Luis, it's any of that. I mean, it's just not going, if you don't have the relationship, you can't say, hey, can you get me a job at your company working for you, blah, blah, blah. It's more, it is the ask of, if we're in the same area, if we're in Tucson, hey, can we meet up for a cup of coffee? Can you give me 15 minutes and chat? Can you help me look into where I want to go with my career? When do you I still say had the best question, what's your passion? I think those are great conversations you can have, which lead to some relationship building. It's just setting the groundwork. And I would say I'm pretty comfortable myself because I get a lot of students who reach out, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation, but it's, building the relationship before you ask for something crazy. Because again, even a letter or reference, if I don't know you and you put me down as a reference, it's really not going to go well, because if I get a recruiter calls me, I'm going to say I really don't know the person. So it's knowing how far you can go. It's building a relationship. And then you can ask for the references, ask for the leads. Hey, I noticed you're connected to so-and-so on LinkedIn. Would you mind helping me with an introduction? Once the relationship's established, I think it's an easy ask at that point.
So appreciate you to affirm that, Demetrius. It's part of, so when I mentioned this 5 steps program a number of times, and step 1 is where we start with exactly that, is that students need to approach this from a place of discovery and exploration. And if they do that, they will get phenomenal results, because who doesn't love to talk about what they do? I mean, even if you hate your job, you're going to tell us how many people you hate about it and what you hate about it. So it's like, if you approach this from a point of discovery and exploration, you're going to get way more people to respond and be active in communicating with you than if you take that approach like, hey, I just graduated, I'm looking for a job. I see you work at a cool company. That's not what people want to hear.
And perhaps this is a good time to provide a quick plug on the breakout network, Lacey, which is officially a central place of approved supporters and advocates of making those bridge or those connections. So of course, we do want to encourage students and people to sign up, to be part of the breakout network, because that's a great way to make connections, with people who are automatically have defined themselves as wanting to help, in addition to LinkedIn and other opportunities. So I just wanted to mention that, as part of the recording. And Lacey, I don't know if you want to correct any of that or make additional remarks about the breakout network.
Hi, Luis. Hello, everyone. No, that was perfect. Perfect plug. That is, the breakout network is our online connecting and communicating tool. So, Michael, if you're looking to network, it's a great place to find those with a willing to help bar right on the top. And then if you wanted to make a connection, find a mentor, you can do that there on the breakout network as well. Or with our Wildcat Mentor Society, we are still accepting applications for this year. So you can get your application in and be set up in a cohort, work with peers who have a like-minded goal for their career interest area, and work with a mentor like Demetrius, Brent, Wendy, Jennifer, and towards those goals. So yeah, I'll drop.
Yeah, and by the way, that's step number 4 in the 5 steps program, is the breakout network and LinkedIn. Again, thank you for taking your time for being here. This was our first one. We look forward to having additional meetups throughout this semester, and then running the same series again in the spring. So looking forward to additional meetups along the way. And then again, we're looking at how do we eventually move this to an in-person opportunity as well. So we can do some sort of hybrid, Zoom plus in-person things, all cool things on the horizon. But thanks again for spending your afternoon with us today, and look forward to seeing you all again in the future.